I believe it's Mun from Australia. Please tell me if I'm not pronouncing that right. Mun, what's going on?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, it's Moon, but it's just my nickname.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for calling Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Yeah, the question I've always said is like, I'm a Christian and I still believe in God. And I'm always wondering, it's like, why these days people are so sometimes quick to dismiss their faith. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Because for me, I'm a little bit different from like what I was hearing. For me, what I try to do is like, I'm not one of those people like I try to consider what like everything else and then come to a decision. And one of the things that I do is I try to seek whatever the truth, and then I try to follow that truth because I'm one person who believes like we came from somewhere and we go somewhere. So for me, it's like every time I'm always hearing like some of these conversations, especially with a lot of some of these conversations, I kind of feel like some people, they just like are quick to just like dismiss Christianity, and they don't really try to really dive deeper and try to understand why or try to answer some of the questions. Because
well,
in my case, I'm still a Christian, and
let me tell you this. I understand. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of some audio troubles here, but yeah, I understand from if you're just watching this show from the first time. I don't know how much you've seen this show or other productions from the ACA. It probably looks like, oh wow, why are these guys so quick to dismiss what they're hearing here? Aren't they willing to kind of look into this stuff? And the truth is, man, we've looked into this stuff, and for my case, years now. I've been doing this show for 2 years, but even before that, I took at least a year for me to really fully deconstruct my Christian faith. If you were here at the top of this show, Erin was just telling her story. I mean, she grew up as a Christian, and she was a Christian longer than I've been alive, and so like that tells you a lot about, the kind of people that we have in our community. I understand that. From looking on the outside, it may have that appearance of, whoa, we're really quick. But if you really listen to us and hear our stories, like, not only have we looked into this, but we were believers hardcore a lot of times. And we had to discard our beliefs because we realized we couldn't justify them. As much as I would love to say, I come from a creator, like this is where I'm from, and I have this belief in a higher power. It's not something I can say I believe in honestly anymore, because I don't. And I'd rather be honest about that disbelief than pretend and believe something that I don't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed out a little bit on that one.
Yeah. So, Mun, tell me about yourself here, because you say you're still a Christian. You say you have a God belief. What convinces you that the Christian God is real? I'd be curious to know.
For me, it's more to do with like sort of. For me, the thing that convinces me every day, it's when I look at like our purpose for being here and where we came from. And then at the same time, thinking about like how everyone dies and what happens to us after we die.
How do you know that something happens to us after we die?
Pardon?
How do you know that something happens to us after we die?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly the question. But like, that's when I was thinking, because I used to really like go deep into like, I also used to have like a lot of questions about Christianity. I was one of those people like I would question almost every aspect of it like that. And then one thing like that's the question when I was asking myself what happens to us when we die. That's like when I came up to this point of like I think there's there's a mystery about death, and that's when you know everything, because no one really knows what happens when you die, unless because no one has died and come back. So it's like when you die, whatever the truth was, it's gonna like you're gonna know it then, and it's like there's no way back. Like
Maybe, but let me.
How do you know anything happens at all after you die?
Yeah. What if nothing happens?
What is your, the thing that convinces you that anything about our personality and our who we are as a person? What is like your most convincing piece that tells you that anything happens after?
The thing that tells me the most that something happens after is the fact. It's just that fact, that mystery that say we die and something happens to us. And then if because of that, that means like there is one truth to what happens to people when they die. It's either, that's exactly right. Like you can either just go into nothing, or the universe could be right too. You can be reincarnated, or Christians could be right too. You could go to heaven or hell depending on what you did on earth, right? Or what you believed in.
Sure. So I would say, Mun, as
life,
you're watching the show. So our take on this, I would say, generally as atheists, is you're right. Like we have no idea exactly what happens to the person of us as we die. We have some ideas. We've observed death. We've seen other people die, and it doesn't look like anything happens. But the specific claims of different religions, right? We have no way of really testing a lot of those beliefs to be true or not. Because they're unfalsifiable. There's no real way for us to like put somebody in a lab and have them tell us what happens because like they're dead, right? So we would reserve any belief on anything that happens to us after we die because we just really don't have any evidence for it. And another thing you said earlier, Mun, that I was going to ask you about was, you said that we have a purpose, and that's another thing that a lot of atheists, in general, would say that, we're not sure that we even have a purpose, because a purpose implies that there was a creator for us that, or some sort of creation that intended something for us. And we don't get that far either, because as far as we know, we haven't seen any evidence of it, right?
Or at least any kind of objective purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose that we speak of usually refers to the ones that we have given our own.
Correct.
Our own lives. Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly construct a purpose for ourselves, but a God-given purpose, that's kind of off the table for us.
And for me, well, it could be seen that way as well. But for me, basically what I look at when I was looking at like origin and purpose, it's sort of this idea because I love science, right? And I study science, it's one of my things that I used to love. And when I was looking at it, and you start looking at some of the people who like pioneered science, like Isaac Newton, like people like Tesla, people like Albert Einstein. And some of the statements they would make, and also when they're uncovering like some of the things in the universe, you just see like this order where it's like things are like working like a clock, where it's like nothing can go out of place. It's not like anything. It's not like some random occurrence thing. It's almost like everything was designed to a specific to meet like a specific purpose of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely awe-inspiring when you look at those kind of those aspects of the nature of reality. It's absolutely it's beautiful and it's inspiring. So I do find it kind of tricky when people say that, like, as an atheist, or you don't have any purpose, but I see a ton of purpose and even just beauty and awe in those kind of things, like those observations that you're making right now.
Yeah, I would say, the illusion that things have this kind of order. I mean, like, it's not an illusion, right? We do see that there is like there are patterns that we can see, that seems to bear out. But like the idea that everything is designed in some sort of way, like that's where we would have trouble with that, because we don't necessarily see that a God is required for there to be, laws of physics. It doesn't seem like that has to be necessary to us, only because, well, one, we haven't really seen evidence of a God. And if the only evidence we have is that the universe seems ordered, that doesn't really tell us anything about that God or what he is or what he can do or I mean, I guess that he can make a universe, but like it really doesn't give us a lot of information there. So and some of those folks that you pointed out, I must say, by the way, Einstein, Newton, they were not your typical Christians. In fact, Einstein, I believe, was not a Christian, more of a deist. And Newton, He had some weird ideas, but yeah, you know, they grew up in a religious culture that taught them to have reverence for things and to attribute things to the divine. And I think that's why you see that in a lot of our great thinkers of history. But I could definitely tell you some great thinkers of history that didn't have that worldview as well. So,
But also, when it comes to like this side, there's also like an interesting part that I'd always find, because like as I say, I always search for these things because it's something that I love interest. It's always interests me. But there was also a part where it's like I would always ask myself when it comes to like creation, because I've heard stories about the Big Bang, and like there's certain parts of it that I agree with. And then there are certain parts I'm just like, I don't know. It's sort of like crossing into the realm of like, this is now a belief rather than maybe somebody talking of like what actually happened. But like one of the other things, because I remember.
Well, I want to ask you about that real quick. Do you think there's parts of the Big Bang that aren't based on evidence, like parts of the descriptions of the Big Bang theory?
Yes.
What parts?
There's some, like for the parts, like for me when I was thinking, like just because in the same sense, people would ask, well, where did God come from? Because we always say, he was there and he existed. Therefore, because he existed, out of him all things were created. The same thing, sometimes I always wonder about Big Bang, where they say it's like there was a point of singularity, or they'll say there were just two subatomic. That's the stories of it. Two subatomic particles that just came together, and then when they collided, then there was this Big Bang which releases so much like energy, and out of that, then upon millions and billions of years, creation started to occur.
I don't want to be that guy, but that's not what the Big Bang Theory is.
Oh, well, that's what I was taught like most of the time. So
yeah. So like subatomic particles weren't even a thing yet.
Yeah.
Like there's a, I'm sorry, I don't have time to really go into in depth on the Big Bang on this show because we got some other callers and it's a whole thing. And I'm certainly not the most qualified person to talk about the intricacies of it, but my suggestion to you, Mun, is look into what the Big Bang really is. Get a PBS video on that, and see if what you see in that video is different from what you remember about being taught about the Big Bang. I think this is a pretty common problem, Mun, and this isn't unique to you. I think a lot of people have an idea of what the Big Bang is, but really actually isn't what the scientists who have been studying this for years and years are actually saying. Because we hear about it and we hear it from somebody else and we get a vague idea. I certainly thought the Big Bang was just an explosion that happened at the beginning of the universe, but it's not even, it's more than just that. Like, it's not even, because an explosion implies that it has, anyway, it's a whole thing. I suggest going into that.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. Because I want to be sure that you have, an accurate idea of what we're talking about when we talk about the Big Bang. So unfortunately, I do have some other calls I want to get to, but I would love for you to call again sometime, Mun. If you watch that video or if you have some other questions to ask us, I'd be down to talk again. What do you think? Oh, Mun, you still there? Okay, I'm not hearing anything from you, Mun, but hopefully if you are there and you can hear us, again, would like to hear back from you. That was kind of interesting because nothing that was said there was, there's no citations of the Bible, really. Mm-hmm. There's no, talking points that I've heard from, I don't know. It was kind of a more, it's something that I expect from a Christian Australian rather than a Christian American.
Yeah, it's kind of halfway there. Like, remember what I mentioned earlier about how I kind of looked into it, but not enough that it would throw off my faith. So it's like, you're kind of halfway to getting the whole story. You just gotta look a little deeper.
Yeah, if we were talking about the Big Bang from his conception, yeah, absolutely. That kind of sounds like a story because that's definitely a story. I don't think that's what the literature actually says on it, but it's a complex topic. It's not super easy to digest.
No, and I'm no cosmologist or a scientist or anything, so it's like it's
I need to mention this. I keep forgetting to talk about this because 2 weeks ago I had a caller. Somebody asked about the electric universe theory, and I said I would get back to it. And I promise you, I'm still looking into it. I know I said I'd talk about it the next week, but I have a friend who does some work for CERN, who is helping me look into this bizarre electric universe theory stuff. So maybe I'll get to that hopefully pretty soon and talk about that.